Think about the last choice you made today. Seriously, think about it for a second. Maybe it was what to eat for breakfast, which shirt you decided to wear, or even whether to dive into this exact explainer. It felt like your choice, didn't it? Deliberate, completely conscious. Well, we're about to open up a psychological mystery that is deeply, deeply unsettling. We're looking at the hidden limits of our own free will.
What we're talking about challenges our absolute deepest assumption about ourselves, the belief that we act as independent, rational decision makers. We all love to imagine ourselves standing at the captain's wheel of our own minds, steering our lives with pure logic. But the actual science of human behavior, it tells a very different and honestly a much darker story.
Here is the existential truth. Invisible forces, environmental triggers, and biological glitches are actively manipulating your behavior at this exact second. And you don't even realize it's happening. You are not a perfectly rational agent. You are a highly programmable system. And right now, we're going to look at exactly how that system gets hacked.
Part 1. The illusion of choice.
To really understand how we're controlled, we first have to completely dismantle a very comforting myth. For a long time, traditional economics was built on this concept called Homo economicus. This model essentially assumes humans carefully weigh all the costs and benefits of a situation, operating totally without emotion to make optimal decisions. But behavioral economics have proven this is just a fairy tale. We absolutely don't act like computers because, well, our biological hardware is actually severely limited.
The sheer scale of this mismatch is literally staggering. Your brain is a supercomputer, right? It's processing something like 11 million bits of sensory information every single second. But your conscious mind, the you that you think is in charge, it can only handle about 40 to 50 bits per second. Let that sink in. This massive gap forces your brain to take hidden shortcuts just to survive day to day, leaving your conscious mind entirely in the dark about 99.9% of what's actually driving your decisions.
And because of this massive blind spot, human behavior is incredibly programmable by our environment. Look at this chilling quote from early behavioral psychologist John B. Watson. He understood over a century ago that through conditioning, the human mind can be molded into absolutely anything. Give me a dozen healthy infants, and I'll guarantee to take anyone at random and train him to become any type of specialist. And yes, beggarman and thief. We are shaped by external stimuli way, way more than our own internal resolve.
Section 2. Your brain's hidden autopilot.
But the manipulation doesn't just come from the outside environment. The real danger lies in the fundamental biological flaws built right into our own heads. Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman introduced something called dual process theory. Basically, your brain operates on two systems. System 1 is your fast, intuitive, emotional autopilot. System 2 is the conscious you, slow, deliberate, logical. But here is the terrifying part. System 2 is exceptionally lazy. It requires massive metabolic energy to run. So most of the time, System 2 just blindly accepts the impulsive, emotional suggestions of System 1 without ever questioning them.
And when System 1 takes over, it uses mental shortcuts to save time. These are cognitive biases. Think of these as dangerous glitches in your brain's source code. Because they prioritize speed over accuracy, these biases systematically distort reality. You aren't seeing the world as it actually is. You're just seeing the world as your biases allow you to.
Which brings us to a completely mind-blowing example, the famous invisible gorilla experiment. Participants were told to watch a video of people passing a basketball and just count the passes. Right in the middle of the video, a man in a full gorilla suit walks into the frame, beats his chest, and casually walks off. Incredibly, 50% of people entirely miss the gorilla. No way, right? But this is called inattentional blindness. It proves that we only see what our hijacked attention allows us to see. Your brain literally edits reality in real time.
Part 3. The architecture of manipulation. Once you realize our brains are full of these glitches, a pretty dark reality sets in. Marketers and choice architects actively weaponize them against you. Take the framing effect, demonstrated by a really famous disease experiment. Imagine 600 lives are at risk. When a medical treatment was framed as saving 200 lives, 72% of people supported it. But when the exact same mathematical outcome was framed as losing 400 lives, support plummeted to 22%. Think about that. Our deeply held moral choices can be completely controlled simply by changing the words in a sentence.
Then we have anchoring bias. This is basically an invisible tether that secretly restricts our ability to rationally value the world around us. Your brain latches on to the very first piece of information it sees, and all subsequent judgments are anchored to that initial, often totally irrelevant number.
Behavioral economist Dan Ariely actually proved exactly how easily this manipulates us. He did an experiment where he asked students to write down the last 2 digits of their social security number and then asked how much they would pay for a computer keyboard. People with high social security numbers were suddenly willing to pay triple the amount for the exact same keyboard compared to those with low numbers. A random digit from a government ID subconsciously forced people to overvalue a product. Your wallet is being emptied by these invisible anchors every single day.
Section 4. Dark Psychology and Control.
Now, it isn't just massive corporations exploiting our minds. Dangerous individuals in your personal life, your workplace, your relationships, they use these exact same biological flaws against you. This is the realm of dark psychology, the application of psychological principles to intentionally harm or control others. People with psychopathic or narcissistic traits, they don't interact with you logically. They bypass all of that and interact directly with your System 1. They prey directly on your deep emotional vulnerabilities to completely bypass your rational defenses.
And their arsenal is overwhelming. Love bombing to blind you with affection, gaslighting to make you actually doubt your own sanity, paltering, which is using truthful facts to weave a totally deceptive illusion. They'll guilt trip you, mirror your personality, isolate you from your support networks, and project their own flaws onto you. This rapid-fire assault is purposely designed to simulate confusion. They weaponize your cognitive biases to paralyze you. This all builds into a terrifying, step-by-step cycle of emotional control. First, the manipulator gets way too close too soon, completely bypassing your normal boundaries. Second, they act like a human data broker, quietly collecting your deepest insecurities to use as ammunition later. And third, they constantly shift the goalposts and gaslight your reality. You're left desperately trying to please someone whose only goal is your subjugation, until you don't even know who you are anymore.
Section 5. Who is really deciding?
So, this brings us to a profound philosophical climax. Between the extreme limits of our biology, the framing of society, and the emotional manipulation of others, we suffer from what's called bounded rationality. As the research confirms, our decisions are permanently restricted by limited cognitive capacity, incomplete information, and the constant pressure of time. When you combine that with the massive choice overload of the modern world, true, entirely independent thought is incredibly rare.
Dan Ariely summarized this whole situation perfectly. He asked, wouldn't economics make a lot more sense if it were based on how people actually behave instead of how they should behave? We are not rational calculators. We are predictably irrational. And it is precisely this predictable irrationality that makes our minds so incredibly easy to hack. Which leaves us with one final, deeply terrifying thought. You've seen the glitches in your brain's source code. You've seen how marketers, choice architects, and emotional manipulators pull the levers of your subconscious. So, if your mind can be so easily pulled by invisible strings, who is holding yours right now?